Bora had worked at Luna Station for 12 years. She had listened to the silence of space every single day. She had heard comets pass by. She had tracked human ships moving between colonies. She had recorded the gentle hum of distant stars, but she had never heard anything like this. The signal came at 3:47 in the morning, Earth time. It was strong, it was clear, and it matched a pattern that existed only in ancient history files. Bora's hands began to shake. She checked the data 3 times. Then she checked it again. The energy signature was identical to records from 2,000 years ago. The had returned. She picked up her communicator and called the only person who needed to know first. Secretary General was already awake when the call came. At 62 years old, she had learned to sleep lightly. The weight of leading humanity across 3 solar systems did not allow for deep rest. "Show me," she said simply. Bora sent the data to his private screen. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. They both understood what they were looking at. "How many ships?" asked. "Over 800, Bora replied. "Maybe more, they are still arriving." Closed her eyes. Every human child learned the story in school. 2,000 years ago, strange ships had appeared in Earth's sky. The beings inside called themselves They looked at humanity the way a person might look at insects. They studied humans for 3 days. Then they left without explanation. But before leaving, they had sent one message. "You are not ready. We will return when you are worth our time." For 2,000 years, humanity had wondered what those words meant. Now they would find out. "Wake Admiral said, and prepare a broadcast to all systems. I will address humanity in 1 hour." Was 73 years old, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. When Bora's message reached him, he felt something strange in his chest. It was not fear. It was almost relief. Finally, he whispered to himself. He dressed in his uniform and made his way to the command center. His staff was already there, their faces pale with worry. Looked at each of them calmly. "You all knew this day might come," he said. "Your grandparents knew. Their grandparents knew. We have had 2,000 years to prepare. Let us not waste that preparation with panic." One young officer spoke up. "Sir, their fleet is massive. Our records show technology was centuries ahead of ours." Smiled slightly. "Those records are 2,000 years old. A lot can change in 2,000 years." Across human space, the news spread like fire. On Earth, people stopped in the streets and looked at the sky. On Mars, families gathered around screens. In the distant colonies of the system, workers put down their tools and waited. Everyone expected panic. Everyone expected chaos. But something strange happened instead. People were afraid, yes, but they did not run. They did not scream. They waited quietly for their leaders to speak. When appeared on every screen in human space, her face was calm. Her voice was steady. She looked like a woman who had expected this moment her entire life. "Citizens of humanity," she began. 2,000 years ago, visitors came to our world. They looked at us and found us lacking. They left us with a promise that they would return. That promise has now been kept." She paused and let her words settle. "They have entered our space with a fleet of warships. They have sent us a message. It says, 'Submit or be removed.'" Across human space, billions of people held their breath. "I want you to know something," continued. "For 2,000 years, humanity has not been idle. We have grown, we have learned, we have built, and we have prepared, not out of fear but out of wisdom. We knew this day would come. We made sure we would be ready." In the command center, watched the broadcast with pride. He remembered his grandfather telling him stories about the old preparation programs. Every generation had added to the work. Hidden research stations, secret weapon developments, defense systems built into the very structure of human colonies. All of it done quietly, patiently, over centuries. "They expect us to be afraid," said. They expect us to beg. They remember a young species that could barely reach its own moon, but we are not that species anymore. We have crossed the stars. We have faced hardships that would break other civilizations, and we have survived them all. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes firm. I have a simple response. Humanity does not submit. Humanity does not beg. If you come in peace, we welcome you. If you come with war, we will answer. The broadcast ended. In the flagship, Overlord watched the human transmission with confusion. He had conquered 37 species across the galaxy. Every single one had reacted the same way when faced with power. They pleaded. They offered tribute. They surrendered before the first shot was fired. But these humans showed no fear. Their leader spoke as if she were addressing an equal. This was not possible. This small species from a small planet could not have changed that much in 2,000 years. Scan their systems, I ordered. Show me what they have built. When the scan results came back, the bridge fell silent. I stared at the data for a long time. Human technology had not just grown, it had leaped forward in ways that should not have been possible. Their ships were different. Their weapons were different. Their entire civilization had transformed. How? One of his officers asked. I had no answer. Back on Earth, met with in a private room. For the first time, she allowed herself to look tired. Do you think we can win? She asked. Considered the question carefully. Our ancestors gave us everything we need. They sacrificed comfort and resources for generations to build what we have. The question is not whether we can win. The question is whether we have the courage to use what they gave us. Nodded slowly, then send our response to the... What should it say? Looked out the window at the stars that humanity had claimed as home. Tell them we decline. Overlord had lived for over 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species beg for mercy at his feet. He had crushed rebellions with a single thought. In all that time, he had never been confused. Until now. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, reading the human response for the 5th time. 2 words, just 2 words. We decline. A turn to his advisors. They looked as confused as he felt. What does this mean? He demanded. Do they not understand what we are? Do they not see our fleet? One advisor stepped forward carefully. Perhaps they are bluffing, Overlord. Perhaps they hope to appear strong while they prepare to flee. Then why are their ships not moving? I asked. Why are their people not running? I have watched their broadcasts. Their citizens are calm. Their military is organized. This is not how prey behaves. He walked to the observation window and stared at the distant human colonies. Something was wrong here. Something did not fit the pattern he had seen countless times before. Send a message to their outer colony, he ordered. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender. If they refuse, destroy them. On Earth's orbital command station, Admiral received news of the ultimatum. He was sitting with his best tactical specialist, reviewing defense formations. Was only 32, but he had trained his whole life for this moment. His family had served in the defense fleet for 8 generations. Every generation had passed down knowledge, waiting for the day it would be needed. Admiral, they have given Colony 7 1 hour, reported. They are positioning attack ships. Nodded calmly. Activate the Colony 7 defense grid and contact Ambassador. It is time for her to speak with our visitors. Had prepared for this role since childhood. She was 43 years old, calm by nature, and trained in every known form of communication. She understood that words could be weapons just as deadly as any missile. She boarded a small diplomatic vessel and flew toward the fleet. As she approached, she felt no fear. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. They allowed her ship to dock with their flagship. When she stepped onto the alien vessel, she found herself surrounded by creatures that towered over her. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that showed no warmth. They moved like shadows, silent and cold. I met her in his command chamber. He sat on a throne made of dark metal, looking down at her with ancient eyes. "You are brave to come here alone," he said. His voice was deep and echoed strangely. "Bravery has nothing to do with it," replied. "I am here to deliver a message." Another refusal. An offer stood straight and spoke clearly. "Humanity proposes peaceful coexistence. We have no desire for war, but if you force war upon us, we will defend ourselves, and we will win." I laughed. It was a terrible sound, like stones grinding together. "You will win. Little creature, I have destroyed civilizations that had 10 times your numbers and 100 times your experience. What makes you think you can threaten me?" "History," said simply. 2,000 years ago you came to our world, you studied us. You left behind traces of your technology. Did you think we would not learn from what you left?" For the first time, A's laughter stopped. "You studied us," continued, "but you made a mistake. You let us see your technology. You showed us what was possible, and then you gave us 2,000 years to figure it out." In the space above Colony 7, attack ships moved into position. Their weapons powered up, ready to turn the small human settlement into dust. The commander of the attack force sent a final warning: "Surrender now or be destroyed." Colony 7 did not respond with words. Instead, something activated across the colony's surface. Hidden platforms rose from the ground. Satellites that had appeared to be simple communication relays suddenly changed their alignment. The commander barely had time to react before beams of energy struck his ships. The attacks were precise, surgical. They did not destroy the vessels completely. They simply disabled them, leaving the crews alive but helpless. Within 3 minutes, the entire attack force was drifting dead in space. On the flagship, I received the report in silence. His advisors waited for his rage. Instead, he sat very still. "They did not kill our soldiers," he said slowly. "They could have destroyed every ship. Instead, they only disabled them." "Perhaps they lack the power for complete destruction," an advisor suggested. "No," I shook his head. "They showed mercy. They wanted us to see what they could do without actually doing it. This is a message." He turned to look at, who still stood before him without fear. "Your people knew we would test your defenses," he said. "You knew we would attack that colony." "We have had 2,000 years to think about how this meeting would go," replied. "We planned for every possibility. Every possibility. Every single one." Arose from his throne and walked toward her. He moved slowly, studying her face for any sign of weakness. He found none. "In all my years, I have never seen a species respond to us this way," he said. "Your people should be running. Your leaders should be begging. But instead, you stand here and speak to me as if I were just another diplomat." "Because that is what you are," said. "You have ships and weapons, yes, but so do we. You have experience, but we have patience. You have conquered many worlds, but we have survived every challenge our universe has thrown at us. We are not your prey, Overlord. We are your equals." I stared at her for a long moment. "We will see about that," he said finally. Nodded, "Yes, we will." She turned and walked back to her ship without looking back. She knew that war was coming. They would not accept being challenged. They would strike with everything they had. But as she flew back to human space, she felt something close to hope. The first test had been passed. Humanity had shown its strength without losing control. They had demonstrated power while offering peace. Whether they would accept that offer was another question entirely. Back on the flagship, I called his war council together. "These humans have changed more than I thought possible," he admitted. "But they are still just one species. We have conquered dozens. Prepare the full fleet. We will show them what true power looks like." His advisors bowed and left to carry out his orders. But one advisor, a younger named, stayed behind. "Overlord," he said carefully, May I speak freely? Speak. The humans knew we would attack. They knew where and when. They responded perfectly. This suggests they have studied us as much as we studied them, perhaps more. Your point? Hesitated. My point is that we may be walking into something we do not fully understand. These creatures have been waiting for us, and they are not afraid. I dismissed him with a wave. Fear is for the weak, prepare for battle. But as left the chamber, I found himself thinking about the human ambassador's eyes. There had been no fear in them, no desperation, only calm certainty. And for the first time in 3,000 years, Overlord felt something he did not recognize. It took him a long time to realize it was doubt. Had spent 60 years studying the First Contact. She had read every document, examined every artifact, and interviewed every descendant of those who had been alive when they came. At 78 years old, she knew more about that ancient meeting than anyone else alive. Now she stood before the United Systems Council, explaining how humanity had used 2,000 years of waiting. When they left Earth, she began, they did not leave empty-handed. They took samples of our air, our water, our soil. They took recordings of our languages and our music, but they also left something behind. She pressed a button and images appeared on the council's screens. Strange metal fragments, unusual energy readings, patterns that had taken centuries to understand. They left traces of their technology, small things, a damaged sensor here, a piece of hull plating there. They did not think we could learn anything from such scraps. They were wrong. Secretary General watched from her seat at the head of the table. She had heard this story before, but it still filled her with pride. Our ancestors were clever, continued. They did not try to copy technology directly. They knew that would take too long. Instead, they studied the principles behind it. They asked questions. How do these materials hold together? What energy sources could power these systems? What physics makes this possible? She changed the images to show human laboratories and research stations built over the centuries. Every generation added to the work. Every generation passed down what they learned. Parents taught children. Teachers taught students. Scientists trained other scientists. The knowledge grew slowly but steadily, like a river carving through stone. Admiral spoke up, but it was not just science, we also prepared our minds. Nodded, yes. Our ancestors understood that technology alone would not be enough. We needed to be psychologically ready, so they taught us patience. They taught us calm. They taught us to face danger without panic. Every drill, every training exercise, every story told to children was designed to prepare humanity for this moment. Far from the council chambers, a young pilot named was learning just how well that preparation had worked. He was 24 years old, flying a fighter craft at the edge of human space. His squadron had been deployed to hold the border against scouts. For 3 days, they had watched and waited. Now the waiting was over. Contact, his wingman reported. 12 fighters approaching. Felt his heart beat faster, but his hands remained steady on the controls. He had trained for this since he was 16. His instructors had pushed him until responding to threats became automatic. Remember your training, he told his squadron. They expect us to fight like the species they have conquered before. We will not give them what they expect. The fighters moved in standard attack formation. It was the same formation they had used for thousands of years. It had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. But Squadron did not react the way other species had. Instead of engaging directly, the human pilots scattered in what looked like chaos. The pursued, confident in their superior speed. But the chaos was not chaos at all. It was a trap. As the fighters spread out to chase individual human ships, the squadron suddenly reformed. They came together from multiple angles, catching the scattered in a crossfire. The alien pilots, trained to expect certain responses, could not adapt quickly enough. Within minutes, 8 fighters were disabled. The remaining 4 retreated. Watch them go, breathing hard but calm. Good work, he told his squadron. Return to base for resupply. As they flew back, one of his pilots spoke up. Sir, how did you know that would work? Because they have been conquering for too long, replied. They expect every species to fight the same way. They have forgotten how to be surprised. We have not. On the flagship, a received report after report of similar encounters. Human forces were not winning every battle, but they were winning enough. And they were fighting in ways his commanders had never seen. Counselor approached him carefully. Overlord, may I share an observation? Waived his permission. The humans are not just using new tactics, said. They are adapting during battle. They change their approach based on what we do. Our commanders report that no 2 human responses are the same. So they are creative, said dismissively. Creativity is not enough to defeat us. With respect, Overlord, it may be more than creativity. I have studied their transmissions. Their soldiers speak to each other constantly during combat. They share information instantly. They make decisions as a group while still acting as individuals. A turn to look at him, and we do not do this. Our forces follow orders from above. Our soldiers wait for commands. The humans do not wait. They act and adjust together like a single organism with many minds. For a moment, said nothing. Then he asked, what do you suggest? I suggest we learn more before we commit our full force. These humans have had 2,000 years to study us. We have had only days to study them. Perhaps patience would serve us better than aggression. Patience? A's voice grew cold. The do not wait, we act, we conquer, we move forward, that is our nature. Yes, Overlord, and it has served us well against species that panic and flee, but these humans do neither. They stand and fight with strategies we have never seen. Perhaps our nature needs to adapt as well. Stood suddenly, anger flashing in his ancient eyes. You speak dangerous words, counselor. The do not change. We are what we have always been. That is our strength. Bowed his head, as you say, Overlord. But he did not believe it, and deep down he suspected did not believe it either. Back on Earth, finished her presentation to the council. Our ancestors gave us a gift, she said. They gave us time and they made sure we used it wisely. Every year of those 2,000 years was spent preparing, not in fear but in hope. They believed that when they returned, their descendants would be ready. She looked around the room at the leaders of humanity. We are those descendants. We are the product of their patience. And now it is our turn to prove that their faith in us was not misplaced. Secretary General stood and addressed the council. They will attack again. They will come with more ships and more weapons. They will try to break our spirit before they break our defenses, but they do not understand what they face. She paused, letting her words settle. They face a species that has been preparing for this moment for 2,000 years. They face people who were raised from birth to remain calm under pressure. They face soldiers who train not just their bodies but their minds. They face scientists who have spent generations unlocking the secrets of the universe. Her voice grew stronger. They think patience is weakness. They think waiting means fear. They do not understand that for humanity, patience is power. We have waited long enough. Now we show them what that waiting has produced. In colonies across human space, people watched their leader speak. They felt the weight of history on their shoulders. They remembered the stories their parents had told them and their parents before them. 2,000 years of preparation, 2,000 years of hope, 2,000 years of patience. Now, finally, it was time to use it all. And humanity was ready. The meeting place was a dead moon at the edge of human space. No life had ever existed there. No one would be caught in the crossfire if things went wrong. Ambassador arrived first, accompanied by a psychologist who had spent his career studying how different species think. With them came a military strategist who watched everything with sharp, calculating eyes. They waited in a small shelter built for this purpose. Through the window, they could see the shuttle approaching. "Remember," said quietly, "we are here to understand them. Every piece of information helps." Nodded, "I will watch their body language. The way they move can tell us as much as their words." Said nothing. She was already recording everything, feeding data back to Admiral's command center. The delegation was smaller than expected. Only two figures emerged from the shuttle. One was Counselor, whom had not met but recognized from intelligence reports. The other was Ancient, moving slowly, his gray skin marked with patterns that spoke of incredible age. "I am Elder," the Ancient One said as they entered the shelter. "I was young when we first visited your world. I remember your ancestors." Bowed her head slightly. "Then you have seen how much we have changed." "Yes," settled into a seat with obvious difficulty, "and I have come to understand why." Remained standing, watching the humans carefully. The Elder insisted on this meeting. "Overlord does not know we are here." "That is a dangerous choice," observed. "Perhaps," replied, "but necessary. The Overlord is too proud to ask the questions that must be asked. I am too old to care about pride." Leaned forward slightly. "What questions do you want to ask?" Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something like sadness. 2,000 years ago, I looked at your species and saw nothing special. You were clever, yes, resourceful, but so were many species we had encountered. I expected you to develop slowly as others did. I expected that when we returned, you would be slightly more advanced but still far beneath us." He looked directly at. "I was completely wrong. You have grown more in 2,000 years than most species grow in 10,000. How is this possible?" Answered carefully. "Humans are driven by something many species lack. We are never satisfied. When we solve one problem, we immediately look for the next. When we reach one goal, we set a higher one. We cannot help ourselves. It is part of who we are." "But other species have ambition," said. "Other species seek to improve." "True," agreed. "But humans combine ambition with something else. We share knowledge freely. When one human discovers something new, they teach others. When one generation learns a lesson, they pass it to the next. We build on what came before. We never start from zero." Made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. "And there is the heart of it." He turned to, "Tell them what we are, tell them our shame." Hesitated, then spoke. "They cannot create new things. We can copy. We can improve what exists, but true innovation is beyond us. Our minds do not work that way." Felt a sudden shift in her understanding. "That is why you conquer." "Yes," nodded slowly. "We find species that create new technologies. We take those technologies. We use them until they are exhausted. Then we find new species to conquer. It is the only way we can survive." "But that is not survival," said quietly. "That is consumption. Eventually, you will run out of species to take from." "We know," his voice was barely above a whisper. "We have always known. They are slowly dying. Every conquest only delays the end. We cannot change what we are." Spoke for the first time. "Then why attack us? Why not ask for help?" "Because asking for help requires admitting weakness," replied. "The Overlord would rather die fighting than admit the need anything from a younger species." "Pride," said. "Pride," agreed. "The most dangerous weakness of all." There was silence in the shelter. Outside, stars burned coldly in the empty sky. Finally spoke again. "Humanity offers you something unprecedented, partnership. We will share our knowledge freely. We will teach you how we create, how we innovate. In return, you share what you have learned from other species. Together, we could accomplish more than either species alone." Closed his eyes. "It is a generous offer, perhaps too generous. The Overlord will see it as a trick." "And you," asked, "what do you see?" "I see a species that has every reason to hate us, offering us a chance we do not deserve. Opened his eyes. I see hope, something I had forgotten how to feel. Stepped forward. Elder, even if we accept this offer, the Overlord will not. He is already preparing the final assault. He will throw everything we have at human space. I know, rose slowly to his feet, but perhaps not every will follow him. There are those who are tired of endless war, those who wonder if there might be another way. You would divide your own people? Asked. I would give them a choice. For the first time in our history, would be able to choose something other than conquest. Looked at the humans with something like gratitude. You have given us that choice just by existing, by showing us that patience and cooperation can achieve what violence cannot. As the meeting ended, walked with back toward the shuttles. You took a great risk coming here, she said. Perhaps, but I have watched your species carefully. I have seen how your soldiers protect civilians they have never met. I have seen how your people share resources during crisis. I have seen how you treat captured enemies with dignity. Paused. These are not the actions of prey. These are the actions of something new. What will you do now? I will return to the fleet, I will watch, and when the time comes I will make my choice. Turn to face her. What will you do? Looked up at the stars. We will do what we have always done. We will prepare. We will protect our people. And we will hope that when the fighting is over, there is something left worth saving. Back on her ship, shared what she had learned with Admiral. Their fleet coordination depends on a central command structure, she reported. If we can disrupt communications from the flagship, individual captains will have to make their own decisions. Based on what's said, many of them are unsure about this war. Studied the information carefully, so we do not need to destroy them, we need to give them a choice. Exactly. Remove A's control and the fleet may fracture on its own. Nodded slowly. Prepare the plan. Focus on the flagship. If we can end this with minimal casualties on both sides, that is the best outcome. And if we cannot? Was quiet for a moment. Then we do what we must, but we try the peaceful way first. That is who we are. As human forces prepared for the coming battle, thought about and, two, who had found the courage to question everything they knew. Two beings willing to betray their leader for the chance at something better. Maybe, she thought, there was hope for everyone after all. Even enemies could become allies. Even conquerors could learn to create. Even the could chain. She just hoped enough of them would make that choice before it was too late. The final assault began at dawn, Earth time. Overlord had gathered every ship in the fleet. 800 vessels moved as one, their weapons charged, their crews ready for the battle that would decide everything. A stood on his bridge, watching human space grow larger on his screens. 3,000 years of conquests had led to this moment. He would not fail. He could not fail. All ships advance, he commanded. Today humanity falls. Admiral watched the approaching fleet from his command center. Around him, officers moved with calm efficiency. There was no panic, no fear, only focused determination. They are coming with everything they have, reported. No reserves, no backup. Good, replied. That makes this simpler. Activate the defense network, all squadrons to their positions, and send the message to Counselor. Across human space, defenses came to life. Satellites that had floated silently for centuries revealed their true purpose. Hidden stations powered up weapons that they had never seen. Ships that had seemed ordinary suddenly showed modifications that changed everything. The first clash was brutal. Weapons tore through the outer defense line. Human ships exploded, their crews lost in seconds. But for every human ship destroyed, 2 vessels were disabled. The humans were not just fighting, they were fighting smart. Led his squadron into the heart of the battle. His pilots moved like a single mind, covering each other, adapting to every tactic. They had trained for this their entire lives. Every simulation, Every drill, every sleepless night had prepared them for this moment. "Focus on the flagship," ordered. "That is our target." A watched his fleet struggling and felt something cold growing in his chest. This was not how it was supposed to happen. The humans should be braking. They should be running. Instead, they were pushing back, matching his forces move for move. "More power to the weapons," he commanded. "Break through their lines." Overlord and officer interrupted. "We are receiving a transmission. It is from Counselor." A froze. "From where?" "From one of our own ships. He is calling for captains to stand down." On screens across the fleet, his face appeared. "Brothers and sisters," he said, "for too long we have followed the path of conquest. We have destroyed civilizations. We have taken what we needed and moved on. But today we face a species that will not fall. A species that offers us something better than victory. They offer us a future." A slammed his hand against the console. "Cut that transmission, now." But it was too late. His words had reached every ship. "The humans do not want to destroy us," continued. "They want to teach us. They want to share their gift of creation. For the first time in our history, we have a choice. We can die following an overlord who leads us to extinction, or we can live by accepting help from those we tried to conquer." Across the fleet, ships began to slow. Captains who had served for centuries hesitated. The doubt that had planted in his private conversations had finally bloomed. "All ships continue the attack," a screamed. "I command you." But command was no longer enough. Squadron reached the flagship. His pilots engaged the defense systems, drawing fire away from a single ship that dove straight toward the command bridge. I saw it coming. He stood tall, refusing to move as the human weapon struck. The explosion was contained, precise. It killed and destroyed the bridge but left the rest of the ship intact, had ordered minimal casualties, and his forces had delivered exactly that. With a gong, the fleet fell into chaos. Some ships continued fighting out of reflex. Others stopped entirely, their captains unsure what to do. His voice returned to the communications channel. "The Overlord is dead. This war is over. All ships stand down." One by one, vessels lowered their weapons. Some turned and fled into deep space, but most stayed, waiting, uncertain of what would happen next. Admiral opened a channel to the entire battle zone. "This is Admiral of the Human Defense Fleet. To all forces, we accept your surrender. You will be treated with dignity and respect. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your ships will not be destroyed. The war is over." In the silence that followed, something changed in the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, they had been defeated, but they had not been destroyed. They had been offered something they had never received before: mercy. 3 months later, Secretary General addressed the galaxy. She stood on a platform orbiting Earth, with stars shining behind her. Representatives from human colonies and refugees stood together in the audience. Counselor was there, along with the aged elder who had lived just long enough to see his hope become reality. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," declared. "The war between humanity and thee is officially over, but more than that, a partnership has begun. They have agreed to share their knowledge of the galaxy with us. In return, we will teach them how to create, how to innovate, how to build futures instead of destroying them." She looked directly at the representatives. "We know this will not be easy. Thousands of years of conquest cannot be undone in a single day. Trust must be earned. Old habits must be broken. But we believe it is possible. We believe that any species, no matter their history, can choose a different path." In the crowd, Ambassador stood next to. They had worked together over the past months, building the framework for cooperation between their species. "Your leader speaks well," said quietly. "She believes what she says," replied. "That is what makes her effective." Was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "When your ancestors first met us, 2,000 years ago, did they hate us?" Probably admitted. We were terrified and angry. You left us feeling small and helpless. And yet you did not let that hatred consume you. You used it to grow stronger. And when you finally had the power to destroy us, you chose mercy instead. Shook his head slowly. I still do not fully understand. Thought about how to answer. When we were young, we hurt each other constantly. Wars, cruelty, destruction. We nearly ended ourselves many times. But eventually, we learned that revenge only creates more pain. The only way forward was to break the cycle, to offer peace even to those who had harmed us. And if we had rejected your offer, if I had one, then we would have died trying to do the right thing. Some things are more important than survival. Turned to look at her. You are a strange species. We know, smiled slightly. That is our greatest strength. Later that evening, found herself alone with on an observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and full of life. Can I ask you something? Said. Of course. When you watched us during the war, what scared you most about humans? Considered the question carefully. His answer when it came was slow and thoughtful. You waited, he said. For 2,000 years you waited, you prepared, you built. And when we finally came with all our power and all our rage, you were not afraid. You looked at us calmly and said no. He turned to face her. Every other species we conquered had one thing in common. They panicked, they made mistakes. They let fear control them, but not you. You stayed calm, you thought clearly, you acted with purpose. He paused. That is not natural. That is not how living things respond to danger. And that scared you. Terrified me, admitted. Because it meant we could not predict you. We could not control you. You were something we had never faced before, something we had no defense against. Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. New enemies, perhaps. New friends, hopefully. Whatever came, humanity would face it the same way they had faced the. With patience, with preparation, with calm. We are still learning too, she said finally. Every day we try to be better than we were before. That is all any of us can do. Nodded slowly. Then perhaps there is hope for thee as well. There is hope for everyone, said. That is the one thing 2,000 years taught us. No matter how dark things seem, there is always hope. You just have to be patient enough to find it. Together, human and stood in silence, watching the stars that they would now explore as partners instead of enemies. The silence of 2,000 years was finally over. And something new had begun.